We like to think our modern world is pretty rock solid, right? But the truth is, it runs on these incredibly complex systems that are, well, they're a lot more fragile than we think. From our power grid to the very skies above us, there are these hidden weak spots, just waiting to turn a small problem into a massive crisis. So let me ask you a question. What on earth could a terrifying Category 5 hurricane possibly have in common with you being stuck at an airport because your flight is delayed? It sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But the answer reveals a really critical weakness in the way we've built our world. And in this explainer, we're going to connect those exact dots. And to crack this riddle, we're going to dive into two cases that seem like they're from completely different planets. On one side, you've got Jamaica and its neighbors, who are literally on the front lines of climate change. And on the other, you have the crowded, strange skies over the United States and the system that's supposed to keep them safe. Okay, so first stop, the Caribbean. For island nations like Jamaica, disaster prep isn't something you do once in a while. No, it's a constant reality. They're living on the climate frontline, and that means facing a whole barrage of overlapping risks, all the time. And what's really striking when you look at this is just the sheer variety of threats they face. I mean, we all think of the natural ones, the hurricanes, the floods, but look at this. Their planning has to cover man-made stuff like massive tech failures or cyber attacks, and biological threats like, a global pandemic. It is a constant multi-front battle. And the economic toll, it's just staggering. This isn't a one-time thing. It's a chronic, grinding cost. I want you to just imagine if your country's entire economy had to pay a 2.1% tax every single year, not to build things, but just to recover from the latest disaster. That's the reality they're living with.
And if you want to see what a true worst-case scenario looks like, get a load of this number. When Hurricane Maria slammed into the island of Dominica back in 2017, the damage came out to 226% of the country's GDP. That's not a typo. A single storm caused damage worth more than double what the entire nation produced in a year. How do you even begin to come back from that?
So where does the damage hit the hardest? This chart tells the whole story. Those big green bars show what it costs to rebuild. And look at the two tallest ones, transport and electricity. These are the big centralized systems, the power grid, the roads, the ports. When they get knocked out, the whole country just stops. They're the fragile backbone of the whole economy. But, and this is the really crucial part, Jamaica isn't just taking these hits. They are actively fighting back. In response, they're building one of the most comprehensive resilience strategies on the planet. They're pouring money into stronger infrastructure, creating these amazing risk information platforms. They're doing everything they can to build a system that can actually take a punch and get back up. Okay, now let's pivot. We're going to jump to our second case study, and you'll see how this all connects. We're shifting from a crisis driven by the forces of nature to one that is 100% human-made, and it's happening right over our heads, the crisis in America's air traffic control. The problem, at its core, is painfully simple. There just aren't enough certified air traffic controllers to manage the busiest airspace in the world. And that leads to exhausted, overworked staff pulling mandatory overtime. And in places like New York, it's gotten so bad they're actually forcing airlines to cut back on the number of flights. And this isn't just a feeling, it's a fact. Check out this number. Since 2010, the workforce of fully certified controllers has shrunk by 13%. That's nearly 2,000 people. This isn't a sudden shock. It's a slow, grinding depletion of the most essential resource they have, trained people. And if you ask, how did we get here? Well, this timeline shows it's a story that's been decades in the making. It really goes back to 1981, when there was a major strike and mass firings. After that, the entire training system was rebuilt around one single centralized academy in Oklahoma. And right there, that created a bottleneck, a single point of failure. Fast forward through decades of hiring freezes and disruptions, and you end up right where we are today, chronic shortages and dangerously fatigued staff. So, on one hand, we have a Caribbean nation battered by storms. On the other, an American aviation system stretched to its absolute breaking point. They seem like they're worlds apart, but they are suffering from the exact same underlying problem. And we can give this problem a name. Let's call it the resilience deficit. It's what happens when we completely fail to invest and plan for shocks that we absolutely know are coming. Whether that's more powerful hurricanes from climate change or a wave of retirements from a critical workforce. We end up creating these brittle systems with one single point of failure, just waiting to snap. And right here, this is the aha moment. this is where it all clicks into place. Let's put them side by side. The single point of failure? In the Caribbean, it's that centralized power grid. In U.S. aviation, it's that single training academy. The root cause? In both cases, it's decades of underinvestment. The impact? Massive economic disruption. See? The hurricane and the flight delay are just different symptoms of the exact same disease, a resilience deficit. So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, the good news is we don't have to invent the answers from scratch. There are already some really innovative solutions being developed and even put into practice. We just have to decide to invest in them. Let's go back to the Caribbean, where that constant threat has actually forced some amazing innovation. Experts there came up with 4 different models for what the power company of the future could look like. It starts with the status quo, moves to a smart utility, but it's the last one, number 4, that is the real game changer. Okay, now get this, because this is brilliant. The most revolutionary idea they came up with is called the mobility utility. In this model, the power company itself would lease electric vehicles directly to its customers. Now, why on earth would a utility do that? Because every single EV is a giant battery on wheels. By managing a whole fleet of them, the utility creates a massive, decentralized energy storage network. It can use those car batteries to stabilize the entire grid during a crisis. It turns a potential problem into the core of the solution. And guess what? There's an answer for the air traffic control crisis too. And we just have to look north. NAV Canada has pretty much already solved this exact problem. How'd they do it? By decentralizing their training. They use advanced simulators, they partner with universities, and all of that creates a flexible, resilient pipeline of new talent. They don't have a single point of failure. So here's the bottom line. It all comes down to this. Thinking about and investing in resilience isn't some extra cost. It's an absolutely critical necessity if you want a society that actually works. Whether we're talking about building decentralized power grids or decentralized training programs, the principle is exactly the same. Build for the shock you know is coming. Which leaves us with one last question. And this one is for you to think about. Look around your own world, your city's water system, your company's computer network, your local hospital. What critical system that you depend on is being neglected? And what is its single point of failure? Because finding it now is the first, most important step to making sure it doesn't break right when you need it the most.